Today's federal debt is about $19 trillion. That debt amount is the gross outstanding federal debt issued by the United States Department of the Treasury since 1790. In 2013, the Congress and President Obama were unable to pass a budget, the result being a series of mandatory cuts known as sequestration, and thereafter the Congress and the President were able to reduce the growth of the federal deficit until the most recent 2016 Budget Act. Here in Maryland, according to the Federal Reserve of Richmond, economic reports on Maryland's was mixed. In recent months, there has been a slight improvement in housing indicators and among households. There has been a slight employment decline. On a year-to-year basis, total employment in Maryland has only expanded by 1.4%. Maryland's unemployment rate has fallen by 0.1%. However, payroll employment in Cumberland MSA has dropped 2.4%, and in Hagerstown MSA, employment levels remained unchanged. Now we'll turn it to our questioners. Ms. Angstead.
I'd like to address this question to Mr. Vogt. What is the best way to reduce the size of the federal deficit?
First area, we've got to reduce the size of government and all of the wasted areas and inside the government itself on every level. It happens at the federal level, it happens at state levels. All these agencies have this little game they play at the end of every fiscal year called spend it or you lose it. Instead of being fiscally responsible, they waste billions of dollars every year. And on top of that, the biggest area as far as exponential is we've got to stop putting hundreds of billions of dollars in other countries that don't care what's going to happen to us. Point in case, $150 billion that went to Iran in that horrible deal.
Ms. Prager.
This question is from Mrs. Hober. The official unemployment rate is 5%, but we know that over 90 million working age citizens are out of work. They are out of the workforce. What are some specific actions you would take to fix this problem, especially in our district?
Well, I've already actually taken some actions to help this problem. I have found there's a small company in Oakland, out in Garrett County, and I discovered what it is they did because they were the first hub zone business out there. A hub zone business is a historically underutilized business area. I linked them up with a larger company that I knew here in the Washington metropolitan area that needed exactly that sort of talent, and they now have a subcontract working with that larger company. I've also arranged for some interviews in Hagerstown for 70 people that were recently laid off from the Volvo plant there with a company that I also knew here in Montgomery County that was looking for people with exactly those sorts of records. And I know the interviews have happened. I honestly don't know whether any particular jobs have resulted from that, but I do know some action was taken. So I'm already trying to solve the job problems in our district, and I will do more every day when I'm in office.
Ms. Bauer.
Thank you. This is a twofold question to Mr. Mason. Can you make a simple, persuasive case why capitalism is preferable to socialism? And how do we promote this understanding in the general public, especially younger voters?
You say socialism? Capitalism?
Yes.
Socialism.
Capitalism is preferable to socialism.
Well, capitalism empowers the individual. It creates competition and allows the individual to succeed. And it gets government out of the way. Allows quality to rise and costs to plummet. Or socialism, basically communism, it's one and the same. It empowers the government to oppress the people. It allows the government to rise and it allows the people to fall. And it makes you subservient to the very government that's supposed to serve you. So capitalism and socialism, how do you get our young people to understand it? Get rid of a socialistic school system. Public school system is inherently socialistic. You've got to create competition within the school system. It breaks the back of the Democrats overnight. The school system's a money laundering system for them. They give taxpayers' money into the school system, they launder it into the union and turn it back to Democratic dues, and then they teach and brainwash our kids into socialism. Look at all the schools. Why do we always gripe about it? Ever since the federal government or the federal Department of Education got involved in the early 20th century, Iowa had the best rated school system. Since they got involved in the early 20th century, Iowa's bell curve went from always growing to declining, and it's never recovered. Get the government out of the school system. If you allow competition in the school system, that's inherently capitalism. You'll teach capitalism just by changing the entire system, and it'll change the minds of our children for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cave.
Why do I always gotta follow this guy? This question is for Mr. Howard. Our trade policy stinks. We're getting hosed. It's the most politically correct way I can put it. Whether it's with the Europeans or in Asia, they sell into us, we can't sell anything into them. We're getting clobbered, our jobs and factories are gone. What are you gonna do about it?
First of all, I think for many years, for decades, Jerry, conservatives have said almost across the board that free trade is better than restricted trade, and I don't disagree with that. However, the world is changing, and indeed there are some trade policies that have been enacted and that are being talked about being enacted, like the TPP and some others, that are candidly, in my opinion, not in the best interests of the American worker.
Excuse me for interrupting you, but I do not see these as free trade. I see it as our jobs going out and their money coming in, so I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You're,
Are you running?
he has in the past.
He's the candidate. Ask the question.
I'm making it stick to...
Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Sure.
Ms. Angstead.
I have a question, excuse me, from Mr. Ficker. In 1996, Republicans and President Clinton worked together to enact significant welfare reform that required people to work, to prepare for work, or at least to be looking for work in order to continue to receive benefits. And this has been quietly removed by President Obama. So he reversed the workfare reform. What is your plan to reduce this kind of dependency if you are elected?
We need to bring a lot of the jobs that are going to China back to Maryland. We need to make Maryland as job-friendly as Virginia and more job-friendly than China. Apple Computer, it's the largest American company, I'm a stockholder, has 500,000 jobs in China and 50,000 in the United States. We need to give incentive to these corporations to bring the hundreds of billions of dollars of funds that they have overseas back home. Our manufacturing plants in Cumberland and Hagerstown, they're gone. I had the Republican nomination for this seat in 1984. Many of the companies that were in the 6th District then are no longer in the 6th District. We're looking for casinos and jails to provide jobs. We need the free enterprise system. I've never worked for the government. I've always had a small business. I've made my way and hired lots of attorneys that are working in Montgomery County and other professionals. We need to keep the taxes down, cut the regulations, make ourselves more like Virginia, and bring those jobs overseas, bring the money back home. JOBS is my favorite 4-letter word. I'm the only candidate up here that has the word jobs on his signs because it's going to be my watchword on the Hill.
Thank you very much. Ms. Krieger.
Mr. Mason, so it's your turn. What are your plans to bring viable job opportunities to our district?
Very easy. As a federal representative, you don't try to, I disagree with Victor. This is part of the problem. I'm not going to try to bring jobs. I'm going to allow capitalism to work. I'm going to allow the people in Maryland to do for themselves. I'm just going to get the government out of the way by reducing regulation, reducing the agencies that apply the regulations, like the EPA, into a state like this that make it where you can't even frack. In Western Maryland, then we would have a booming economy out there if they were allowed to frack. But the EPA shuts that down. So get the government out of the way, allow the people to do for themselves, and quit trying to bring something back, which is why we're 20 trillion in debt. And it's going to keep skyrocketing if we go up there like hogs and keep sucking at the teeth of government and trying to bring something back that was never intended by our founding fathers. But you have to do. If you don't have, it's because you don't want. If you have, it's because you want. So do for yourselves and quit looking for government to do it for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Ms. Bauer.
Thank you. This is a long one, and I'm going to address it to Mr. Baker. Mining has been a significant part of Maryland's economy, particularly in the western counties. In 2015, some 356 mines were active. According to the 2012 U.S. Economic Census, 54 firms operate mines in the state. Campaigning in Ohio recently, Hillary Clinton said she wants to move away from using coal as an energy source, even if it means eliminating jobs in the process. We're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business. Do you agree with Mrs. Clinton?
You couldn't even come close to agreeing with her. But I just often look back at all of the quality and all of the good families up in Allegheny, Garrett County, even West Virginia, where a lot of their, many coal mines are. And those good old, I guess Hillary Clinton calls them, they're not good quality ways of providing energy to America, but those good old-fashioned jobs were good enough to raise a family, help their kids go to college, keep them warm in the winter, dry in the summer through their housing. So I certainly support the mining industry, and I would certainly support bringing those mining jobs back to western Maryland and other parts of the state of Maryland. Thank you.
Mr. Cave.
This question is also from Mr. Baker. Our culture has demonized blue-collar work. I cannot tell you how many clients I've talked to in the trades. They can't get carpenters, they can't get bricklayers, they can't get HVAC, they can't get auto mechanics. How do we change the culture so that the kids will want to go into this and get the elites to stop demonizing blue-collar work, which are good-paying jobs, as you well know?
Well, as I said earlier, right now I could get up here, leave, get on a plane, go anywhere in the United States, and I could be employed within 24 hours. I have skills. I grew up with skills. My dad, he was a carpenter, painter, and so forth. And when I went to college, all I wanted to do was be an industrial arts school teacher. And it's very, very frustrating when I hear people say the Mexicans are here, the illegals are here, they're doing the jobs that the Americans won't do. I firsthand see it. They've eliminated the industrial arts programs in our public school system, the related arts programs, good programs that train kids for trades. And kids do want to work. Kids do want to earn a living. They do want to have skills. You look at the heroin epidemic. Many of the people that are out there doing heroin, overdosing, it's because they have nothing to fall back on. They're working at McDonald's, they're working in a fast food restaurant, grocery store, and they feel like they can't advance. Kids do want to work. I'm around kids. I've been around kids for 35 years in the public school system. And I am an advocate of public schools. How many of you out there have had that good old-fashioned public education? Let me see by show of hands. Okay, so I do support public education, but it does need to be improved. Get the trades back in the school, start training the kids for something they'd be successful at, give them more opportunities. That's what I advocate for.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anstad.
I would like to address a question to Dr. Chang. According to John Delaney, the country needs to develop a national energy policy focused on two goals: becoming a global leader in domestic energy production and also alternative energy forms, and also properly responding to climate change. And I realize that's two questions. What is your opinion on this?
I stand for multiple energy resources, which include renewable, coal, gas, oil, and alternative fuel. I know the people are concerned about the climate change, concerned CO2, the carbon dioxide. As I said, I'm biochemistry, and I know this knowledge. For that one, people don't worry about such kind of things. You know why? Because now have a new technology. With a new technology, CO2 can convert it into methanol. They already have this. people know is I'm scientists, study them, and have very good progress. So this is shouldn't have worried about that kind of stuff. So I don't think they will, I mean, American have this kind of issue. I support have coal mine.
Thank you. Ms. Krieger.
This question is for Mr. Painter. Could you answer the question that Mr. Vogt answered? What is the best way to reduce the size of the federal deficit?
I think the way we reduce the federal deficit, first off, you have to balance the budget. You know, we've racked up 20 trillion, I believe it is, of the national debt. Now the deficit is what each year, how much more you're adding to it. We need to stop adding to it by balancing the budget each year. Once you balance the budget, you then bring jobs back, like a couple of different people we have talked about up here today. You bring jobs back, which will help us kill the welfare state, get people back to work, supporting themselves, not looking for the government to help support them. That cuts down on government spending on our biggest thing, our entitlements. And last but not least, we've got to make our allies spend more on our joint defense, and America not being the world's police. If we do that, we can get our fiscal house in order over the next 25 years or so. It ain't gonna happen tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Painter. Ms. Bauer?
Thank you. This is a question for Frank Howard. Would you support a shutdown of the federal government or mandatory sequester cuts? Just a page. To the federal budget, knowing that the sequester in 2013 is believed to have resulted in a loss of $2.1 billion in lost wages to Maryland.
The sequester is a budgeting and financial trick, and Congress needs to get back to regular order. In fact, the 1974 Budget Act, Sharon, served our country well, but is no longer working and it's broken. We not only need to get back to regular order, which means setting budgets, passing appropriations bills, and then Congress conducting oversight, but we need a new, fixed, improved budget act so that Congress can get back to doing its job. Once we get back to regular order and Congress is doing its job again and doing those three things, setting budgets, passing appropriations bills that the President signs, and then conducting oversight, then and only then will we see an end to these silly machinations such as the sequester, the fiscal cliff, these huge omnibus bills that just take the previous levels of spending and mark them up 2 or 3 or 4%. And that is what I was referring to in my opening comments about Congress not doing its job. So would I support a shutdown of the federal government? I think last time that was actually President Obama who was the one who actually pulled the trigger and shut the government down. The press blamed it on the Republicans. I would support us getting back to regular order and getting Congress doing its job again for the people, doing the people's business.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Mr. Cave.
This question is for you, Chris. If I understand you correctly, and the way you put things, that would be difficult even for me, that you want to defund the great deal of the federal government, which would pretty much be compelling the constituents that are going to vote for you to commit a well-deserved economic suicide. How are you going to do that?
That's right. When I was at the Defense Intelligence Agency, I went around, I was very unpopular, because I told the people there that if we're going to save this country, many of us are going to have to lose our jobs. It's logical. You can't keep creating government jobs. They take a lot of money. They add a lot to the debt. You have to reduce the debt, and the only way you're going to reduce the debt is reduce government. The only way you're going to reduce government is by reducing the government that's taking the money. We have to reduce it. We have to act like conservatives. It doesn't matter if we think we are or not going to receive votes, because you will. I talked to many people. I said I wanted to fund the IRS. They said I have family working in the IRS. And I said, you know what? If we don't do it now, there won't be a government to have any jobs left for your family to have. And they said, you know what? That's a good point. Maybe we need to reduce some in order so that we can save a little, because now if we keep going, there won't be any for anybody in the future. We have to reduce. It doesn't matter what we think or don't think. It's going to hurt somebody's pocketbook. It's just like with bringing all these up. I want to reduce government. I want to be conservative, but I want to go up to Capitol Hill and bring every single thing I can back to your district. Well, how's that being conservative? What's that gonna do for you? It's just gonna implode the general economy. Every other congressman is doing that. And that's when we talk about pork, right? And putting things into amendments and things like that, all these amendments, pork amendments. We have to stop that. We have to be conservative. That means people are gonna have to lose their job. I lost my job. I lost my job under the sequestration. I went out the door saying, see, I told you, we've gotta lose our jobs, and I'm not complaining. I lost mine.
Thank you very much. I have a question for the panel. Which of the three is a greater threat to U.S. security? Terrorism, climate change, or internet security? We'll start with you. Lou.
Terrorism.
No, terrorism.
Internet security is rising in importance. Palo Alto Networks would admit to that, because it's happening in our commercial areas, it's happening in the government, and I think that's the wave of the future. We have to be very alert for cybersecurity.
Mr. Mason.
Yeah, terrorism.
I think internet security is in fact a part of terrorism, and so I would lump them both together.
Yeah, I do think terrorism is the bigger problem, but I think Almond's right. They are linked.
Mr. Chen.
Yeah, the terrorism. Yeah, I think both of them is right, that the cybersecurity is important also.
Terrorism.
This is going to lead to our fourth topic tonight, which is national security and defense. The world seems inflamed.